Okay, so my name is Candy Hike, and I'm the director in Old Age Security in Canada Pension Plan, which is a processing. We literally process millions of applications for people to get benefits and services. Employment and Social Development Canada is really the social arm of the government. We're delivery, we're upfront delivery. We still have places for people to drop by and come in and see us. We cover things like unemployment insurance, Canada Pension Plan, old age security. We do a couple of other interesting things too, something that's been in the news a lot lately. We're also responsible for temporary foreign workers, grants and contributions. So it's a very, very big department. We spend more than all of the others combined. So CRA does a great job for us. They collect all your taxes and we do a great job by spending it all. Just as an example, I pay out just in Ontario alone $3 billion in benefits a month, so it's really big. Good thing about especially in the Canada Pension and Old Age Security side of the department, we're what I call a growth industry, and that's because the demographics of the situation. So those of us who are born, for example, if you were born in 1950, you're about to turn 65 next year, and that's when eligibility starts. So all those baby boomers who were born in the late 40s, all of the 50s and early 60s are about to generate a lot of business for us. So we're doing our very best to modernize, automate, see how we can make the process simpler, but to be quite honest, it's a very big ship to turn. And so we're definitely a growth industry. We're looking to have people help us, and but I'll put in a word that we're all about service. We're about service to citizens who help make the country great and who deserve excellent service. So we really are the service delivery arm of the government. We've just recently incorporated Passport Canada, so we also are the delivery arm for passports. So a lot of what we do is to process applications for benefits and then make sure that our clients get paid every month when they should. So it's a very, very big department. There's 5,000 in Ontario alone, 20,000 across the country. There are lots of opportunities. I would say we went through a 3 or 4 year period of what was the Deficit Reduction Action Plan, and we were all part of that. I would say we were now coming out of that. I don't think it's a big secret that next October there will probably be a federal election. So as you start to approach an election, there's sometimes opportunities to do a bit more recruitment. So it's a good time. The last couple of times I came here is sort of going, well, we're doing our best, but fiscal restraint, deficit reduction. But I would just say that we're starting to come out of that, and to be quite honest, as our workload is growing, the more we need people as well. There are so many diverse things. The one thing we'll get to more of the questions, but there's so many diverse things within our department. We have, for example, integrity units that go out and they're literally like police, and they go out and find fraud for us and that kind of stuff. We have communications people who track social media for us, who write briefing notes, who write parliamentary cards, in case a question comes up in the House. So there really is a broad range of services all within our department. So I like to say size does matter, and we're big, and we deliver a lot of service. So that's my intro.
Okay. Is this working? Okay, good. So my name is Helen Choi. I'm from the Public Service Commission. I'm pretty sure most of you wouldn't know what that organization is, but essentially we are an agency that actually reports directly to Parliament. And we are actually responsible for partnering with every federal department, including my colleagues here who are from Service Canada as well as CRA. We are working on behalf of the federal government to essentially reach out to students like yourself, as well as the community all across Canada, to actually recruit qualified students and graduating students as well, some of whom may be graduating students this year, within our different student recruitment and graduate recruitment programs. One of the things that's a little bit different actually with the government is that we are legislated in the way that we actually hire people. Most federal organizations do fall under what's called the Public Service Employment Act, Some organizations, such as Canada Revenue Agency, do not fall under that act, but they're still part of the federal government. So they recruit a little bit differently than perhaps some of the other departments do in the federal department. One of the interesting things that we do, such as this kind of event that I'm participating in, is actually to go out across the country in different regions to actually talk about what are our student and graduate recruitment programs. We have 5 programs that we run every year. There are some key dates because one of them is actually closing tomorrow. For students, there's the Federal Student Work Experience Program. That one is a year-round inventory for students who are looking to work either part-time or full-time. Any federal department can hire you from across the country if there is an opportunity for them. This past year, as Candy had already mentioned, we had, for the past few years, kind of a lull in terms of the opportunities that were available to hire students for basically up to 4-month work terms that match your academic semester periods. But that application, as well as the number of jobs that are coming out to hire the students, is actually increasing. So I would agree with Candy that we are coming out of a period where there hasn't been a lot of opportunities. So now would be a good time to start looking into that. And for that program, the application date for the next year's inventory starts October 20th. So I think a number of you had passed the table at the back with the flyers that advertised our one website, jobs.gc.ca. Everything is there in terms of application dates, what you need to know. The other big program, which is closing tomorrow, would be for students or graduates, anybody who's graduated basically at any time with at least 1 degree or diploma from a college or university, is a post-secondary recruitment. And I don't know if many people have heard about that, but that program is essentially matched to various career streams which match your fields of study and specializations. If you've graduated from that, you could be hired starting next calendar year, by any departments who are interested in offering either a term or what we call a contract position, or permanent positions actually with the government. And that could be at any federal department as well. So that's the one where I'm not sure how many people know about this, but you apply. It's already open for applications. The closing date is actually tomorrow, October 2nd, 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So I encourage you to go to our website, look under the graduates tab if you're interested in that, and actually see what the opportunities are to apply. This year's campaign, because we are coming out of a situation with that deficit reduction action plan being more or less over, there are a lot of departments that are actually participating that are looking to hire this year. So for example, one of the ones that's very popular is the Foreign Service of Canada, to be a diplomat, travel, that sort of thing, always very popular. Another one that's very popular is what we call a career stream, which is matched to fields of study. That's the administration, arts, commerce, and social sciences stream. So there's a large range of opportunities that could come out of that for entry-level officer positions. And once again, it could be anywhere across the country. So with the graduate post-secondary recruitment program, if you apply by October 2nd, you will be invited to take an online test, and if you pass that, that'll take place in October. If you pass that, then you'll be invited to a supervised test, which could be anywhere at a location across the country in Canada, as well as Canadian missions abroad. And if you pass that one, then essentially you would be included in what would be an inventory, and federal departments would then have access to potentially request your application for further consideration. So if you've not heard of that, I encourage you to look at it and to apply. And if you don't make it this year, I encourage you to apply every year, because different opportunities will come up every year. Sometimes it takes a while to get into the government. I actually came in through that post-secondary recruitment myself, and that was when I was already mid-career after having already had a career in private sector. So it can apply to anybody who's graduated from any point in time. Most of them are for that type of graduates. Some of them might ask for recent graduates, but most of them for any graduates of any level, actually. So those are the different programs that I'm here to actually talk about. As I say, they are, generally speaking, for all federal departments. And I'm quite happy actually to answer questions, or if you have more comments about that later on in the session. So,
and for the post-secondary recruitment, with tomorrow's deadline, do they go to jobs.gc.ca
Yes,
as well to apply
yes.
for that?
Everything is always on jobs.gc.ca for not only student and graduate recruitment programs, which are usually in the fall, that have deadlines that are in the fall as well, but for any jobs, generally speaking, that are posted there. Other departments may post job opportunities all throughout the year. So you can actually subscribe to a job alert when you go to that website. You can also follow us on Twitter to get alerts on what kind of opportunities are being advertised. And once again, that could be anywhere across the country.
Thank
Okay.
you. And Elena?
Hi, can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Okay. Yes? No? Is this on?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Okay,
That's better.
better. My name is Elena Giorgio. I work for Canada Revenue Agency, so no one knows what that is. Two things we don't get away with is death and taxes, and we do the taxes. So everybody has to pay taxes anywhere you go, whether you shop. We administer all that. It does not mean that you need an accounting background to work with Canada Revenue Agency. We have over 40,000 employees, so bigger than them, no? And we administer the GST, the universal benefit, if anybody has younger brothers or sisters. We administer a lot, and so it is a big department. We have different areas. We have IT, we have collections, we have appeals, we have HR, we have finance. Our biggest area is audit, definitely, because we have to administer what everybody files on their income tax or what they don't file. I started with Canada Revenue Agency 20 years ago when I was 5. No, just kidding. So I started with HR, and then I went into the accounting stream, the audit stream. So I started auditing small businesses, and then I moved up to a supervisor. I originally finished at Wilfrid Laurier University, and then I went and did my designation, which Canada Revenue Agency did pay for. So that's another bonus, that they do pay for your schooling, and they also do pay for your designation once you receive it. We also have valuations, so any designation that you work towards, they will pay for. Currently, I am in the Toronto office. We are doing the condo project, which I don't know if anybody has heard, but it's hit the media, and we are auditing all of the investors that buy and sell or flip condominiums. We have a team of 25 auditors, and I do have 4 students working for me, and they're really, really good, and I've kept 2 of them on. And then Vanessa and another student from Western are with me for a year. We do have a lot of programs for students, not just graduate students. So, for example, Kevin is in his 4th year. He started with me in his 3rd year. And the same thing with Vanessa. So we have co-op options, we have 1-year internships, and the big program that we're promoting right now, it is with an accounting background, is if you graduate by the end of April, we will put you in a 3-year stream where you will start at a certain level of income and then increase, and they will move you into different areas of audit. So you'll start with smaller corporations and move into bigger corporations. We also do have an IT apprenticeship program, which we are currently hiring. We have the pamphlets at the back, so you can pick them up. I've also put Vanessa and Kevin's phone numbers and emails, so if you do need to speak to them, you can contact them, or any other questions you may have. So that's about it about our department.
I am in the process of becoming bilingual. So I have to tell you, in the executive cadre, I would say you don't have to be bilingual, but if you really want to get high up at a certain level, they do expect, they're now going through that they want all executives to be bilingual. So, but the nice thing is they pay somebody to come in and talk to me in French, tout en français, chaque jour, and so I'm enjoying it a lot, and it's actually good learning. But I have, for example, all of my managers are unilingual English. So there is a little bit of a ceiling, but there are lots of opportunities. We provide training all the time for people who want to have French as a second language, or Conversely, in Quebec, they do it for English as a second language. I have a bilingual center, for example, in Timmins. One of my processing centers is there. So I recruit bilingually there, but even there, half my staff is unilingual English. So there are lots of opportunities. I would not, if you have both, great, but I wouldn't let it hold you back. There are lots of opportunities. Even when you come in the door, there'll be, we have a special learning budget for second language put aside. So if you have aspirations, for example, to make it to the executive cadre, there are lots of opportunities for you to get French language training in-house.
No, and I was gonna say that they'll even pay you extra if you are bilingual. And just look at the job. A lot of our executives get paid to go learn French, so it's a good thing. So don't let it stop you.
And maybe I can also speak a little bit about the bilingualism is, yes, I was bilingual. That's one of the reasons why I went to Ottawa. However, even in terms of doing policy work, like developing policy or writing policy, Candy mentioned that writing and communication skills are very, very important. I would agree. But even in that context, it's possible to even find work like that in unilingual English or even unilingual French, and to a lesser extent, even in Ottawa if you're mobile there. I would say, generally speaking, in the rest of Canada, there are not as many positions where you are required to be bilingual because most of Canada is unilingual English or French. So if you stay in a region, most likely you would be working in a position that's unilingual English, unless you're serving the public and it's required that you're bilingual, or if you're working with colleagues that are bilingual across the country, you may be required to be bilingual. However, as Candy mentioned, there's usually a training budget for every department that's identified for people who need to be bilingual, to maintain the bilingualism as well, to improve it, or just to learn as well the language. So you get paid to do that, to actually go to school, imagine that, language. So if you're interested, I encourage you, even if you're at a beginner level, there are even classes like that for you, all in-house usually, within the different federal departments. So similar to what my manager Andy was talking about is that it depends on the internal posting and how it's worded in terms of who is eligible to apply. If it's part of the core public service and it depends on some very specific wording, students sometimes are not eligible actually to apply, whether it's through a co-op that they were hired or through some other kind of student program. Usually it will have special wording that says this is also open to students or some wording to that effect, just to be very clear. Because the priority actually in the government, generally speaking, the federal government, is actually for permanent employees actually of the government. So that's usually the first priority. But they do often open up certain opportunities to students where they know, for example, like in a situation like with CRA, if a student has been there, that they're kind of being groomed for development, and ultimately they will become, or they hope that they will become a permanent employee of the government, they will perhaps add that extra wording that says it's also open to students or in co-op or some other kind of a program like that. So you may have both situations where they're closed or open to you.
So another comment with Canada Revenue Agency, when we do have students, once they graduate, we can bridge them in, meaning they do not have to compete with anyone. So we have the option as a supervisor to bridge them in and keep them permanent.
And I'd just add one of the benefits of the entry-level positions. Once you get your foot in the door, you can compete for everything, as long as you've got the requisite experience and that kind of thing. And you get full benefits in that. After 6 months, you're just like everybody else, and you can apply for everything and you get all of our benefits. So that's some of the benefit to those entry-level positions, because once you're in, you're in.
And as Elena was saying, in terms of the bridging, that's an option open to any federal department. If you get hired as a student, co-op, or internship, and if the employer likes you and they have an opportunity for you, they may bridge you, as Elena said, without any competition. So you don't have to write exams or whatever. They already know your work history, obviously, they like you. It's one of the few ways you can actually get into government without competition. So that's another reason why I encourage you to apply for the student programs. That's one of the things also about the federal government, is that whether you're applying externally, such as yourself, or whether once you become an employee of the government and apply to internal positions, there may actually be some job openings which are only open to people of one of the 4 employment equity groups, such as, which are actually Aboriginal persons, persons with disability, visible minority, and women in underrepresented positions, such as what can I say, like in management, actually, for example, executive cadre, as Candy was saying. Those would be like the 4 employment equity groups. If you belong to any one of those 4, it's to your advantage, I would have to say, to self-identify and declare and actually complete that section, because sometimes there are some positions that are only open, or they may only select people of those groups. And the reason why is not to be discriminatory, it's the opposite actually. We're trying to represent the government, because we're the public service, we're actually proportionately trying to represent what the population is within our own workforce as well. So those are the 4 groups where we chronically have a shortage actually of people in those groups. So it's voluntary for sure if, to identify yourself as a member of one of those groups. You don't have to. You can change your mind later as well if that's something that you want to do, but you don't actually have to declare that at the time of application. It might though be an advantage to you at some point.
And for those who missed it earlier too, there's no limit to the number of jobs that you can apply to.
No, we don't keep the
definitely
files.
no.
So you can apply every single time.
That's right.
But, you know, it's funny because we were recruiting for our call centers and the site was a bit glitchy. And so we had tried to put it up for 48 hours and it only was up for 6. But in 6 hours, we got over 700 applicants, so we didn't repost. So that's when I say you really have to check it all the time. I always say, select Ontario and look at everything and go through that. But, you know, if you didn't make it this time, when we screen, we actually decided to test everybody. So the tip I always like to say too is, you know, if it says, you know, are you discreet? Believe it or not, we like to see things we're a bit bureaucratic and redundant at times. So yes, I show discretion every day by this. I showed my discretion in this example. You have judgment. I show good judgment when I do this. And then when I'm going through, or whoever's going through marking, oh yeah, they have judgment, because if they put it down 4 times, they must have it. So I hate to say it, but I mean, I've boarded all my life. When somebody says, you know, I look up the definition. So if they say we really are looking for somebody with client service skills, I'll look up what that means, and then I'll memorize that definition, and even when I'm being interviewed or writing, I'll quote back, this is what it means and this is how I show it. So if you can say to me, this is client service, if you can say, this good judgment means I do this, trust me, it gets you, you know, it's the difference between the yes and, oh my God, this person put a lot of effort to it. Oh my God, they really showed, not only did they use discretion, but they know what it means. So those are the kinds of things we look at to go top of the pile.
Maybe it's a silly question, but is there a sort of a glossary of what you would actually say this is, you know, customer service to us means such and such?
Yeah,
You actually
there are a lot.
say
We
that?
define all our competencies and that kind of stuff, and that's why I say go and memorize it, because you know when you're getting interviewed, that's half the skill is saying I know what this means and here's how I demonstrate it.
I mean, is it actually open?
Sorry, when they post a job, they give you the job description and what attributes you need. So look at those attributes. So one, definitely with in CRA, we need communication. We need conflict resolution, which is a big thing because we're always dealing with taxpayers. You need, well, it's true.
I thought it was internal.
You know, when we call, they don't say, well, welcome, come see me. So just look at the job description, look at every attribute that we describe. And then those are the buzzwords. Ensure that when you do go to an interview, you're well prepared, because we look at communication. Don't just say yes or no, expand, expand, expand.
And so it sounds like the job postings are a really good source of what these competencies will be, and that's one way that you can know how to write your resume and how
We tell you what we're looking for, so
Yeah.
give it back to us.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing is hidden, because that's one of the core values of the public service is transparency. So if it's on the poster and it says these are the essential qualifications that you need, be sure that you will be asked questions through either an interview or written exam or some other way in terms of how do you meet that competency or that attribute, as Elena and Candy just mentioned. too, because that's one that comes up quite frequently, is that usually the poster, and there are so many different ones, so I couldn't tell you offhand which ones would say this, but normally they would say if you don't have a lot of paid work experience, it doesn't actually matter. Volunteer work experience is equally as valuable, or any other kind of community experience, whether it's in school or whether it's extracurricular activities that you do. If it actually meets the criteria that they're looking for, I would include it in your resume and or cover letter, or in terms of answering the questions as well, because it is supposed to be for post-secondary students or graduates, majority of which may be people who don't have a great deal of paid working experience. And these days, because it's so difficult anyway for anybody to get paid working experience, they usually do allow you to put in all of your volunteer experience or extracurricular activities. So I encourage you to include those.
I would recommend if you're applying for a specific department, so employment, or, you know, if you can do on your own some research about what we're about and what we do. I'm always impressed by, oh, I'm very interested in, you know, I've read about the temporary foreign workers and the issues you've had there, or, you know, I'm very interested in the demographics of the seniors and the aging population. Like, you know, we always look for the bonus points, because a lot of people will get a lot of the same things, but if you've actually gone to the extra trouble of knowing about my department, for example, first of all, you've already done some of your homework, because I'm going to ask you when I test you, but if you can demonstrate that, again, it's always about, you know, how do you stand out, and those are the kinds of things. Apart from the communication skills, make sure you spell check. I mean, the first thing I do is if they can't write, and it's all, you know, literally, if you didn't spell check, you probably went to the bottom of the pile. So you have to stand out, you have to be careful. Communication, like I can't overstate it, but do a bit of research. That's how you stand out. Like there's always 4 questions about what would you do and something like that. And if you can say, I'd have already checked how it worked before, those are where we go, oh my God, that's somebody who went above and beyond.
I don't know how both of you actually feel about this, but another thing in terms that's different from the public service, federal public service, as opposed to private sector, is usually most resume, cover letter kind of workshops or books will tell you keep your resume to only 2 pages, keep your cover letter to 1 page or 2 pages in terms of limiting what you can say. That's not actually the case with the federal public service. You can go longer. In fact, online, the space will give you, I think there's only a character limit. There is a limit, but it's much longer than 2 pages. So if you have experience and you need to describe it in order to answer the questions that are asked in terms of the application itself, please include it. Don't feel limited by a 2-page limit. It doesn't actually apply in the federal public service. It's more important that you can demonstrate that you actually have that attribute or that experience or whatever it is that they're looking for, which might be more than 2 pages, depending on what kind of background each of you have. So I don't know if both of you can.
I hate to say it, but if you haven't captured my imagination on the
Okay.
first page, no, I mean, if I'm looking for something and don't find it, I will dig deep. But I'm looking for people who can be concise. I just took training and they do it all the time, the 2-minute briefing. If I can't capture my minister's attention and sometimes they say in the first 30 seconds, I won't even get the 2 minutes. The same thing is true for briefing notes and cards. So you have to be concise. You have to capture our imagination first. Then if it's something that I couldn't find, I would probably, I agree with you. But I have to tell you, when you have 900 to read, you want to be captured right up there and get it quickly. But I do agree that if there's a way to describe it, I go, gee, I didn't see that, I would look further.